2, 1. Welcome to another episode of Progress Always. Mike Anders here with Alec Liberman, Marine Corps veteran, founder of On Target Fitness, my adventure pal, Lieutenant Pal himself, here to help shed some light for our audience on how to make themselves a priority in fitness and in health by eliminating stress and creating alignment between their habits and behaviors. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're all the way back east. You got a little baby girl, 4 months old, to look after, and you're taking the time out of your busy day away from family to chat with my silly ass. I really appreciate it, man.
Dude, I appreciate the invite. I always got time for you, man. And I'm excited.
Yeah, dude. So we met way back when in 29 Palms on pre-deployment, getting ready to head over to Afghanistan. And while that's, as we talk about it as Marines in the aftermath, a very formative experience between the two of us in forging our relationship, I feel like where we really came together was literally years after deployment. And we had partied here and there after we deployed and got out of the uniform and all that good stuff. But when we took that trip to Peru, that's when it really came together. Like, this isn't just some guy that I deployed with. This isn't just, a once in a lifetime trip with a chosen few. Like, we're going to do this again and again and again. You're Uncle Alec to my kids, and we were chirping it up before the show about how rare the level of accountability that we have amongst ourselves, amongst each other, in holding a high standard and making sure that we come through on the promises that we make to ourselves in doing hard things and inevitably making ourselves proud as a result. And it's extremely rare. It's something that we ask of our clients on a regular basis, especially in the beginning when we're talking about creating that alignment between habits and behaviors and your aspirational self. One of the key ingredients in that is auditing your circle and making sure you're surrounding yourself with people that don't necessarily need to be like-minded. I feel like that's just an overused buzzword, but more so people that just support your initiatives and are on board with calling you on your bullshit, making sure that when you're telling yourself a story, and making sure that you follow through or have the support you need to pivot as necessary. And I'm curious to lead off this conversation. Is that something in you between us that was born of the Marine Corps, or is that something that Alec had, an expectation that Alec had prior to?
Boy, I think that like part of the connection that we have is definitely from our time in the Marine Corps. Like, it's a pretty solid foundation. But what is unique about this friend group that I feel so lucky about is like to a man, it's not just like, oh, old drinking buddies. Like, it's funny, anytime you go to the airport and you see like a group of like clearly old college friends that are linking up 10 years after college, and they're usually very bro-y, and they're going somewhere to like play golf or something, and they're just going to go play golf and get drunk and pretend that they're still in college or whatever. But like, I don't think they have what I feel like I have, in that like I so thoroughly like respect and admire you and Paul and Jimbo in like every facet of your lives, and can look up to you guys in like every facet of my life. And like, that just feels so unique. And I feel fortunate.
Yeah. The the second tenet of what we preach is do hard things. And in typical Marine Corps fashion, this crazy idea of taking these crazy adventure trips was born in a bar between Paul and I, sitting there over beers talking about what we were going to do when we grow up. And he's like, hey, dude, my next trip is to Machu Picchu. You want to go? And literally no consult with the wife, no nothing. Like, all right, dude, what flight do I need to book? And booked the flight right there. And upon booking, started a text thread between us and a couple other guys as to who's coming with us. And that trip was like epic on a lot of levels, but also the the chemistry in our own ways as we each throughout the trip went internal, and the support of, hey man, one foot in front of the other, we got this. If it wasn't my knees, it was Jim's back. If it wasn't altitude sickness, it was something else, and the choosing of that intentional adversity. Like, I think that's beyond us as Marines. I think that's something in us that we are called to do. And this merry band of misfits that we've created now looks forward to this hard thing, and you left the Marines much like I did and went and started a gym. And what I see in your message and in your brand is like, fitness is not about the six pack. It is not about overcoming daddy issues or an eating disorder. It's like, from what I see in the On Target brand through my experience of Alec, is we are utilizing our fitness to prepare you for life. And you should be able to walk out of this place and go do something akin to the Salkantay Trek or Kilimanjaro because you're equipped to do so. Is that anywhere close to on point?
Dude, 100%. I'm going to take this recording and update my website.
Okay.
Some of that language. Yeah, like, no, that's exactly what it is for me. Like, for me, my first experience with fitness was like what I needed to do to get ready for the Marine Corps, because I was like a skinny band geek and I was like not athletic at all in high school. And so like it was a major shock to people that I wanted to even pursue that. And then it required like a major, like, I don't even think I could run a mile. When I started, I had hiked and stuff like that, but I was involved in the scouts, but otherwise I was like not very fit. And so it started as this big door opener, and I realized like, oh man, fitness gives you opportunities that you just wouldn't have otherwise. And then obviously post Marine Corps, it's given me professional opportunities, but like the most amazing experiences that I have had, I think in my life, all are in some way tied to like would not have been possible without fitness. So it's like this gateway drug to other things in a way that you forget about. Like I was on a road trip all across the country, a couple years ago, you remember, and I stopped at Craters of the Moon. And it was really cool because if you've never been there, it's a crazy looking place. It's small. You're not going to spend like all forever there, but like there are these caves there. I couldn't believe it. They just let you like walk in there or whatever. And like some
where
of them,
is
once
it?
you get in, pitch black. Craters of the Moon. It's in, I think, southern Idaho near the Utah border. I think that's roughly where it is. I'm trying to remember, but so I'm checking out these caves. Super cool. Takes it's all of a 5-minute walk from the parking lot, and then you walk in them for 5-10 minutes and go to a different cave, and then you're done. It's like 45 minutes of your life, but it was awesome. And then I got back to the parking lot, and it was empty except for 2 cars, mine and then this other car. And I see this guy sitting in the car, and he was a big guy, and he asked me, he's like, hey, how far are those caves? And I was like, probably like 5-minute walk down that path, maybe less. And he looked away, he wouldn't make eye contact with me, and he was like, oh, okay. And then he just sat there in his car. He never saw him because like the idea of being able to walk for 5 minutes was like clearly too much for his frame. And it's like, dude, you're 99% of the way there. You're in the parking lot, like wherever you came from, you are so close. And yet, just this simple thing of like, go check out some cool caves for a couple minutes. That door is shut for that gentleman because of his fitness. And it's a sad thing. I think we don't think about how much what doors we're opening and what doors we're closing with our level of fitness.
Such a good point, man. One of the things that we talk about often on our team is how, much like in sales training, they tell you not to think with your wallet, as to like whether or not you could afford your services and things of that nature. I think the same thought process needs to occur more often in our space as fitness professionals, from the standpoint that we've solved, a great many of us anyway, have solved the fitness equation, right? And we walk through life in this echo chamber of I'm fit, you're fit, all my friends are fit, the universe is fit. And that is just not the reality. And it only takes one step outside that echo chamber, a la the airport, to travel to wherever to recognize that reality. And I think it hurts us as an industry when we approach the dialogue with our clients and our prospective clients around our lens of what it is to be fit, right? Where I want to pull 500 pounds. I want to summit Kilimanjaro. I want to do that hard shit. Whereas, average Joe Smith just simply wants to get out of the car and be able to walk that 5 minutes to enjoy everything that you just described. How do you, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've kind of like my thinking about like what we talk about and how we talk about it has like evolved so much. Cause like, shocker, when we were younger and when we were Marines, I was more of like a hard ass about stuff. And that was like my attitude. And then, most of my professional career in fitness has been with general population clients. So I feel like when I got out of the Marine Corps for a few years, I had actually like overcorrected. And it was, I used a lot of like, a lot of what a lot of people do, a lot of fake empathy, where you're like, oh no, it's okay, but you kind of know it's not okay, but you feel a little uncomfortable holding somebody, put the feet to the fire. You don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever, so you kind of pull punches. Whereas now I don't really pull punches, but what we're punching about is also like informed by, look, the standard American diet is garbage, and then the standard American mindset also garbage. Standard American daily schedule, garbage. I want to help you fix those things because they're kind of screwed up. And we can start one step at a time, and you don't have to be perfect. So like the combination of actual empathy with also like, no, straight up like not pulling any punches about some of what's screwed up. Like if somebody comes to me, they're trying to lose weight and they drink 5 nights a week, I have to address that. I'm not doing my job if I don't. Just like a dentist, if a dentist tells you, hey, if you don't fill this cavity in a year, you're going to need a root canal. Like that's the dentist's job. They didn't do their job if they don't say it. And
right.
I've gotten a lot better about like what I think it's called like radical candor or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like being direct, but from a place of love. Because I think phony, I don't know, being a phony hard ass is as destructive as being like a phony caring person. I think both are both ways of being come from like not a genuine place. And if you just try really hard to be genuine and helpful, then all of a sudden you don't have to worry about balancing anything. You're balanced.
Yeah. I totally stole this from you after our trip to Peru, and I use it a lot in my talks and when I engage with our clients and our team, embracing that honest conflict versus dishonest harmony. And that has gone over so well. And I think that, if you do your best to establish a certain level of rapport and create that expectation and understanding that everything I tell you, everything I recommend, everything I prescribe is intended for your benefit. And also some of that stuff is going to be things that you don't want to hear and are designed to present you with disconfirming information. Because there are things that you're walking around thinking are true that just aren't, right? And when we acknowledge that, we can now insert new stuff, right? That pattern disruption that allows us to infiltrate with new habits and behaviors. And I think we exemplify that in terms of taking what we do in the gym and going out and pursuing these things, and then coming back with these really cool stories to tell. But it's not because we're naturally gifted. I mean, I know you as a mountain goat. That's all I've ever known you as. But, like very, very often on these trips, I'm like, just wait for me at the end. I'll catch up. But, it's not by virtue of any natural gifts that we possess. It's more so a product of if you will, a lagging indicator of what we do day in and day out from a lifestyle choice standpoint. Would you agree?
Totally. I feel like I've gotten, and this is another funny thing to say, I feel like I've gotten so much more disciplined in the last 2 years, let's say, than I think
Mhm.
I've ever been in my life. And, again, it's funny to say because it's not like we were undisciplined as youths. We managed to be in the Marine Corps and succeeded in our time there. So it's not like we were totally undisciplined. And it's not like I even let off that much when I got out. But like, I've gotten so much more disciplined about everything.
Mhm.
And it's serving me so well like down to the detail, like how I do my day. I hand write my daily schedule every day the night before in pencil. And then I make any changes I need to make or whatever during the day, stuff comes up, whatever. But like I've gotten so religious about that. Things that I used to try to do and then I'd kind of like fall off in a little bit. Like now if I make a new habit, I do it. I like it is the thing. And it kind of starts with that daily planner. That's one of those habits that's just been huge for me. And it's simple. It's stupid. It's stupid. I'm just writing down what I'm going to do tomorrow every hour to include what are my meals, when am I going to eat, and what am I going to eat, when am I going to work out. Like meals and workouts are appointments. This was an appointment, that was on my calendar. Like that discipline of those little things that are so easy to dismiss and so easy to overlook, that kind of pennies make dimes and make dollars thing. I've just gotten so much tighter on it. I love it.
So let me ask you, man, because that's a lot of what's floating around the interweb these days. Where are you at with morning routines? Are you a wake up, chug water, cold plunge, ground, meditate, journal, all before 5 a.m. kind of guy? What are we talking about here?
So it's fun. I like to get up pretty early. I usually don't set an alarm. I usually wake up between 4 and 5 without an alarm. And usually I don't have hard morning appointments. So at this point, especially with like the baby, I'll get the sleep when I can get it. But usually I wake up pretty early. I do a couple of those things. I usually do get up and drink a bunch of electrolytes. Sometimes I'll take a cold shower. I don't have a cold plunge, but I want one. I want one day. But for me, the morning routine, it has to be quick. So like it needs to whatever wacky stuff I'm doing. I need from when I wake up and get out of bed to when I can open my laptop and get to work needs to be less than like 15 minutes. So I'm pretty quick. I'm pretty quick. It's
Okay.
usually like get up, get moving. Look at my plan for the day. Journal 3 things I'm grateful for. That's kind of like my meditation. Journal 3 things I'm grateful for, and then set my priorities and set my intention for the day. But that takes me a couple minutes to do that, and then I kind of like to. I'm very fresh in the morning, so I like to just get right after it as quickly as possible.
Right on. It's interesting because that is almost the exact opposite of what I see a lot of being preached is, you need X amount of hours to yourself and blah, 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 blah. And very rarely do you run into somebody who uh, wakes up and hits the ground running and maintains a high level of performance and preserves their recovery as well. That's just not what at least I see being preached on the interweb these days.
Yeah, I see a lot of the extended stuff, and to each their own. What find whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you, I feel like when I talk to people that run actual brick and mortar businesses that have employees, they got to get to work, as opposed to if I was like a travel blogger or something,
Mm-hmm.
if I tried to monetize all our little trips, then maybe I could have time for a different routine. But, I find I just like to get after it. It's just a matter of like how fresh my brain is too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The pursuit of hard. Let's talk about that. There's nothing glamorous about these trips that we take. There's I tell the joke about Machu Picchu a lot because we met up in Cusco, packs on our backs, and we're like, this is how we're doing it. We're fucking hard. We're making this happen. We're carrying all of our own gear. No donkeys, no porters, no
No
guides.
guides.
We're the shit, right? Hoorah, Marine Corps. And then we get into Machu Picchu only to realize, wow, these people are enjoying the view who took the bus, were on the donkeys, had the guides, had their meals cooked just as much as we are. We might be the dummies.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a study in like the journey versus the destination. Because like my memories of that whole trip, I loved the route there more than I actually liked Machu Picchu. Like the Salcantay Pass, I think was one of still to this day one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And that
Oh,
was just like
100%.
on the way, you know?
Yeah. No, it was definitely the journey, not the destination, because all the stories I tell don't have anything to do with the ruins. They have
Yeah.
everything to do with getting lost in your own between your ears as you stare at the top of your boots, wondering when the day is going to be over. And my feet blew up on day 2, and the silver dollar sized blisters I had on both feet, and Paul telling me 4 more miles 17 times on that one leg of the trip, and how uh, hilarious it was to look at Jim over there and just quiet misery and just being like, well, fuck, man, at least I'm not him, And
Dude, Kilimanjaro was so hard on us that we forget the mud in Peru. The mud, like, do you remember the stretch
day
we had where the
2.
mud was so bad that everybody couldn't walk because it was just caked to our feet? So we're wiping out left and right because we're on all this steep terrain with all this thick ass mud, and then we're getting covered in mud like that. You forget that because of how rough parts of Kilimanjaro were. You forget about that. Peru seemed like heaven compared to Kilimanjaro, but that Peru still rang plenty of bells for us. I feel like.
Well, dude, it was like Peru, the gut punch was on the second day. So everything after that was like, okay, manageable, right? Kilimanjaro, they saved that trek. The hard was at the end, where day 2 of Salcantay was the second to last leg for us on Kili. And then I don't think I've told the story on the podcast. So the day we were supposed to summit, right? Altitude is setting in or has set in. Every 5 steps requires a lunch break, not a breather. Like let me put my shit down, take a nap, and we'll take 5 more steps an hour from now. That's what you want to do every 5th step. And from camp, we're looking up this steep face, and I'm like, okay, that's the summit. I can do that because I can see it, right? So it made it manageable. And then we get, I don't know, 150 feet into the deal, take our first break, gear check, and our porter is like, give me your pack. I said, I got it. He said, no, you don't. I want you to make it to the top. Give me your pack. So I give him my pack, and he just starts stepping. And I was just dumbfounded with the ease that our porters were able to just move up specifically from 15.3 to 19.3. And I remember coming over that crest and thinking we were there and having this emotional dump of adrenaline. Like, oh my God, it's over. My wife, my kids, what we accomplished as friends and men, and this flood of emotions is just coming at me, and I am just weeping and sobbing. And then give me our guide's name. What was his name?
Prosper.
Prosper puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, Kaka Simba. That's baby lion for those who don't speak Swahili. Kaka Simba. It's okay. It's okay. When you are done, I give you a minute. When you are done, we must go there. And he points way off in the distance above the clouds, and what looked like another 5 miles away is the actual, and another 1,000 feet up is the actual summit of Kilimanjaro. And I wasn't pissed that there was that much further to go. I was legitimately upset. And this is how out of my mind I was. I was so tired and pissed because he let me waste that emotional moment. And we weren't even fucking there yet. So it's literally it's still a question mark as to whether or not we're going to make it. At least I'm going to make it. And I'm just like, I can't believe you let me waste that right here.
He just let you do it. I was like, I'm pretty sure this isn't the peak. But like the other thing that's so weird that I noticed, like at that 15,000, 15,000 feet and above mark, it just makes you emotional, man. Like you feel feels up there, and I think it's because you're a little bit dying, and so your body's like, yeah, what would it be like if you are dead subconsciously? And like I don't know, like it's emotional up there, man.
Oh, dude, I remember uh getting next to you a couple of times and just being like, "Hey man, are you
Oh, I was
are
gone.
you here?"
I was gone. I was experiencing what seemed like what I've heard people, I've never experienced this myself. The way people describe DMT trips, that's what I was doing. And like, again, going back to the metaphor of like maybe you're a little bit dying up there. Like,
Yeah.
I think my body was like a little bit like, yeah, your soul's like 10% out of your body. And because I was just like I was like literally in space.
And at the same time, you look off the edge and you see the sun coming up through the clouds and you're just like, I'm in the most uncomfortable position I've ever been in, and yet I've never seen such a beautiful view. And it's such a paradox because it's that moment and moments like it that make the hard worth it. You know, I don't know how that is for you, but I know that's for sure one of the things that I will forever and always remember about that experience is being at exhaustion to the point of absolute failure. Like I would rather just collapse and roll down this fucking hill than take another step. And then the pure bliss associated with that view.
Yeah, I no, I felt that too. I mean, that's why I've continued to really be into hiking, and part of the reason I'm always in shape for these like extended treks is because I hike a lot in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, which is known for the worst weather on earth. Because Mount Washington, the tallest mountain in New Hampshire and in New England, is literally the center of three different weather patterns in the country. So all those collide, and right on that peak. So things get wild up there, and then it's just like very rough physical terrain. So it's beautiful, but like the White Mountains are very hard on you in exchange for, the beauty that it gives you. And because
Mm.
it's all trees, usually you're not seeing anything until you actually get to the top. So you got to get to the top if you want to see anything
Oh my
besides
God.
trees. So like you got to earn it.
Yeah.
But there is something addictive about earning it and about things that are earned, and they do hit different than the view that you can take the bus to with the retired people.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it? What is it about that um for you that makes it worth revisiting? Because there are experiences like that where it's like, you know what, that was one and done. I will never do anything like that again. And then here we are like, oh shit, like when can we do the next one?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like I definitely don't want to do Kilimanjaro again.
I
like,
will never
I,
do Kilimanjaro again.
like
Like that
no
that was
way.
one and done.
I would consider Machu Picchu again, but I ain't doing Kilimanjaro again. So like, there are some experiences that it's like, cool. This is great. Never want to do it again. But
Yeah.
like zooming out to like the kinds of experiences that like really
Mhm.
ring your bell and peel all the layers of your onion, and then you have a great time, and then you do want to do it again. I think part of the drive for that is, again, going to like standard American diet, standard American day, standard American experiences right now. There are so many just mediocre scroll with your phone, with your thumb on your phone experiences that I feel like experiencing something that requires some work, that requires some adversity, feels real in a way that just cannot be replicated by AI, cannot be put on a screen, cannot be, turned into a song or whatever. And just to me, those are the most real experiences, and that's when I feel most alive.
So let me ask you this, because we obviously look forward to that. For somebody who isn't a Marine, who isn't an Eagle Scout, who hasn't had the legitimate trial by fire impressed upon them by the big green machine, right? How do you position that in an attractive kind of way to somebody who has no frame of reference for what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is capable of a lot more than they realize. You and me are capable of more things than we realize. And I think anybody, no matter where you're starting, you're capable of so much more than you realize. Like I had a client this year. This is an unusual example, so I don't want to make it sound like this is every client, because like as soon as I start telling the story, you're going to know that this ain't every client. But I had a client come to me, big guy, tall guy, big and heavy, had, well over 100 pounds to lose. And then he decided at the beginning of this year, cool, I'm not going to drink anymore until I hit my goal weight. I'm not going to, have really, I'm going to cut way back on like, your breads, your potatoes. He's Irish. He's from Ireland. So like a lot of like very carb heavy stuff. He cut back on all that stuff, but he's been very strict about two things: the alcohol, no alcohol until, and he's a big beer guy, no alcohol until he hits his goal weight. And then he mostly does not take rest days. He lifts 3 days a week here. And then on his non-lifting days, he goes on an hour ruck. He puts on like anywhere from 30, and sometimes he goes all the way up to 70-pound pack, and he goes and walks with it for an hour. So he basically has almost never taken a rest day since the beginning of the year, and he's about to hit 100 pounds. But that's a guy that was like until he did this, I don't know if he's ever done anything like this. And he just one day kind of got sick of where he was at and was like, all right, I'm gonna give this a shot. And then he dove in, and then I think what happened is he got enough momentum that he started to feel really good a month or two in, because he dropped 20 pounds like instantly, because you know how big guys drop weight quick if they make a significant change like that. So he dropped 20 pounds like instantly. And if you weigh 20 less pounds, you feel good instantly, And I think he got a taste for it, and then now he's off and running. And it's funny because literally his face looks different, and it's not just the weight loss. That's obviously a huge part of it. It's not just the alcohol, cessation. That's obviously part of it. It's literally like he's got a little bit of that eye of the tiger, because he went and he got some, and it's really cool to see. So, and he's just like has a regular job. He's a regular guy. So I think people are so much more capable than they realize, and you can start small. What's a big adventure to one person can be a big adventure to you. Like, you don't need to do what somebody else is doing. Something that's a big adventure to you might not be to somebody else, but who cares? It's a big adventure to you.
Dude, perfect segue into my next question, man. How do you kill the comparison?
Oh man,
how do you help your clients? Because being in the space, you're watching people all day long look to their left and look to their right and be like, I wish. And at the same time, that person that they're admiring could also be looking at them saying, I wish. Right? So what is the dialogue that you're having with people to keep them on the straight and narrow of their own journey, as opposed to the deviation that's associated with what they see in someone else?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about how I feel like I've got that figured out for myself, and then like how I do it for clients, because there's there's a lot of interaction between like yourself, the client, and then yourself, the coach.
Right.
For myself, I've just got to compare me to me yesterday, and when I do that, I always see progress. And then when I'm looking at others, and when I'm looking forward in the future, I'm looking at people that I respect and admire and would like to emulate. So it's a positive and actionable jealousy, I guess, as opposed to just a purely like an envious jealousy where, I feel like it's unfair that so-and-so's there. No, I think so-and-so's there because they figured something out that I could learn from them. And then if they
Mm.
me or directly or indirectly, then I could get there too, and that would be really cool. So like that's kind of like because I used to be, like lots of young people, I used to be more resentful of people that were more successful than me, and oh, they must have cheated to get there, they must have inherited their money, or whatever stupid little haterade was floating around in my stupid little head. Whereas now I'm a lot more focused on like, again, we meet a lot of successful people in our line of work. I see very few of them that their success is unearned,
Yeah.
and it's very rare. It's very rare.
Mhm.
So now I look at somebody's success and I assume, unless proven otherwise, that they have paid very dearly for it and worked very hard for it. And that if I look at that and admire that, and emulate positive attributes that I see from that, that I can do really well. So that's kind of like where my head's at. And then, for clients, again, similar echoes. When I've got a brand new, like unfit client, we actually just did this with somebody who, she was a client a long time ago, like moved out of the area, moved back into the area in the interim, just really got out of shape. So kind of feeling down on herself by the time
Mhm.
she's coming back to us. And then now it's been 3 months, and she's made some progress, but not as much as she wanted or not as much as she'd hoped. And it's mostly like essentially stuff outside of the gym that we want to get tightened up.
Yeah.
But one of the things we were pointing out is like, Jill, you haven't missed one workout in 3 months, which she hasn't. We looked.
Yeah.
She's had perfect attendance in 3 months, which is actually like pretty fucking impressive for anyone.
Right.
I don't care.
Mhm.
I don't care where you're at. Perfect attendance in 3 months is pretty darn good. And then there were a couple other things we looked at. Like we looked at her. We're not a huge powerlifting operation here, but we looked at her deadlift when she started, 3 months ago, and then her deadlift now, and there's huge increases. So we got her focused on, no, compare yourself to you 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Compare yourself to you 3 months ago since you started moving in this direction, not you in college,
Yeah.
or not your
Mhm.
high school weight, for Christ's sake, like some people like
Yeah.
to do. Oh, that's what I weighed in high school. It's like we were all beanstalks in high school. But yeah, that's kind of how I try to fight that negative comparison game. I think it
Yeah.
can be positive, and I think it mostly is, but you got to get people focused on the right stuff.
Yeah. Oftentimes we talk about success, whether it's in health, wealth, relationships, or time, in terms of delayed gratification. And I'm curious as to your point of view, or your thoughts on this whole concept of success when it comes to building a business, being in what you consider to be tip top shape, being a great father, being a great husband. Do you believe you can have it all? Do you think that those things can exist in harmony with each other without challenging each other?
I definitely think they can. I'm a huge fan of, we were talking about, we got started about what Aaron said years ago at your event, where, he really hammered home the way you do one thing is the way you do anything. And, that's that thing that's become a bit of a mantra of mine. And then I've also become a huge fan of synergy,
Mm,
where let's set things up so that the way that I enjoy time with my wife doesn't come at the expense of this or of that or whatever. So, like, for example, Abby likes to hike too. Cool, because now when I want to get in the outdoors, it's also, husband wife bonding time. And
mhm.
that's what we do with Ada now. We bring her. So now it's family time. But it's the same hour. I think part of where people struggle with all these competing priorities is everything's very fragmented, where one thing does take away from the others. Like, again, going back to the I mean, no hate if people do enjoy playing golf, but going back to like the kind of basic bro example of like, what you like to do for fun is go hang out with your drinking buddies and go drink all day playing golf. Cool, now that's time away from your kids, that's time away from your wife, and it came at their expense. So now your wife's going to need some time alone because she's going to be fried from being with the kids all day. And then like so now that's even more time where you and your wife are not together, and not
Mhm.
not building that bond or whatever. So it's very fragmented. And I think if you get stuff aligned based on some core values, be they, personal core values, or something I'm sort of working on is like family core values. Like, what do we stand for as a family? What does that mean? Like, and obviously that's a dialogue. Like, how does that sound
Yeah.
to you, Abby? That can't be pronounced by me. But like, she and I are constantly looking for synergy. And it doesn't mean we never do things separately or whatever, but like what's complicated about family is, you need to have a relationship with yourself. You need to have a
Mhm.
relationship with your spouse. You need to have a relationship with each of your children, and then each of your kids need to have a relationship with you separately, and with your spouse separately, and then they need to have a relationship with each other, and then everybody's got to get along. And then while all that's happening, you need to do whatever you need to do to provide enough value to bring enough money into, provide for your family. And you need to have, similar network of relationships with everybody you work with. Like it can get very complicated, but I just find that I refuse to compromise in any one area, and that keeps serving all the others. It just keeps doing it where like again, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So I do think you can have it all, and I'm trying to be my very best at all of those different roles. I'm trying to be a great friend, to all my friends near and far. I'm trying to be the best husband I can possibly be. I'm trying to be the best father I can possibly be. At the same time that I'm trying to do the best business things that I could possibly do and be the best boss I could be. And at the same time that I'm also taking care of myself and chilling out and dedicating some time that is like not productive. It's just about me. It's just about being, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you can do it all. I do. I think you have to get rid of things that are taking away from the other thing. Like kind of take the e-brake off and then
Mhm.
stop driving with the e-brake on, and then you can do it.
Yeah. That's such a it's a very unique perspective. And I love it. Because I feel like it gives the people listening hope. Because I do think that the trap of all of that is what you alluded to, and that's the desperate attempt to compartmentalize. Family fits over here, work fits over here, extra my time fits over here, and there's nothing saying that they can't coexist. If you look at that compartmentalization and shift the perspective into, something that we also talk about in terms of like that morning routine, right? Habit stacking, you know, reading while you sauna or podcasting while you do your steady state. You know what I'm saying? Where you're in a singular activity, you're serving two initiatives or more. You know what I mean? And I think if we look at the harmony we're trying to bring to ourselves from that perspective, it doesn't seem so daunting. So I
No,
totally appreciate that.
yeah, I totally agree with that. And like the habit stacking, like I think about that in terms of I used to be the guy that would like forget or miss taking his multivitamin like every other day, like all the time. And then once I got focused on, what are the reasons that I do the things that I do? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Then all of a sudden that multivitamin and, the fish oil pill and the other things, I would say multivitamin for sure, but like the shit I take in the morning, the supplements I take in the morning, that isn't just the thing that I should do because like the doctor says it's a good idea or whatever stupid thing. Like now that's like, no, I need to start my day doing something that is for my health. And I'm a
Mhm.
person that deserves to take care of myself. I've gone through chapters in my life where I don't take care of myself because I treat myself like someone that does not deserve it because maybe deeply I felt like I did. But now this multivitamin, this little pill, is tied to actually something very deep where it's like, no, I have to take this because this is a meditation on how I treat myself. And if I
Mm.
and if I don't get this right, then what else am I going to get wrong today? If I don't
Yeah,
if I don't get that right.
sure. And dude, if you don't mind, I'd love to dive in on what you alluded to right there in terms of that period of your life where you treated yourself like somebody who didn't deserve to be treated well. And dude, dive as deep as you want, but I want to really explore just the concept of where ill health, I would say a large majority of it is born from. You don't think there's something going on in terms of the narrative between your ears that would suggest you don't deserve to be well. And I think unpacking the whether or not you deserve it thing is really important and really high value. So if we could unpack that a little bit, I think it would be massive.
Totally. Yeah. So like a really pivotal moment in my life, I was married before and then it all fell apart, right? And then I realized I was getting like very consumed by the anger of the situation. And I certainly had reasons that where I was, right to be angry, but it was I could tell it was consuming me in this negative way. So I was like, okay, I think I should like maybe talk to a therapist and like let's get this worked out. So I set up my appointment, and then she's like, all right, so what's up? And then I give her my perfect punctuated 10-minute elevator pitch about how horrible my ex-wife was and how horrible I was treated, and it's all true, and you can read it in my book. Like I gave her the whole thing, right? And then she was like, okay, why did you put up with that then? And then I was like, oh, I was like, well, because she's like, why did you let her treat you like that? And it was like, oh fuck, and it just like completely opened up this new way of thinking. I was like, wait, you don't have to let people treat you badly. Like, oh my god, wait, I deserve to be treated well too. Like I'm very in tune with like I want to do all these things for other people, but like wait, I get that too. Like and it was it was huge. It was the start of a massive turnaround in my life. But it was like it hadn't even occurred to me that even if it is somebody else's like choices, actions, whatever they did or didn't do, like you can lay blame at appropriate feet, but also why did you let them do that? If it was so bad, why did you let somebody treat you like that? And if you saw somebody else treating somebody else like that, would you stick up for them? Like I've never liked bullies, and I've always sort of been like an anti-bully. I think it's another thing that is a commonality in the Marine Corps. Is we tend to not like bullies, right? And the amount of times in my life that that I let myself be bullied in one way or another, but if I saw that happening to somebody else, I'd be like, hey, don't let them do that to you. So you're learning to treat yourself. It's funny. It's almost like the inverse of that golden rule of like treat others the way you'd like to be treated. And that's sort of like this kindergarten, like don't take some other kid's toy because that would upset you, right? Like it's meant to curtail, I think, negative behavior towards other people. But the inverse of that is some people's like, essentially twist it, and then they don't let themselves be treated as well as they would treat others. They let other people treat them in a way that they would never treat other people. And that was, a huge thing for me. And it was such a foundational lesson that, again, going back to the multivitamin, like it influences a lot of stuff that isn't seemingly related, but I feel like it is.
No, 100%. And, having been with you before, during, and after that dark period that you're referencing, and watching you move through the deep work process of the Leaders Forum New Year Network way back when, and everything that has manifested since, it's really interesting to me because I just landed on this the other day, and I think it plays here because the universe is, if we're going to use the analogy of social media, operates on an algorithm, and seek and you shall find. And in that shitty space that you were in, much like my own getting kicked out of school, all I saw was the negative in the world, right? I found myself settling for less, and the more I settled, the more disappointed I became, and it just became this negative spiral, right? But that's the algorithm of the universe. That's what I was looking for, right? Until I started to filter my feed a little bit, right? And shifting the algorithm so I could start to spiral up, right? And where there were obstacles before, now there's opportunities, right? Where there were things that were in my way, now I'm choosing that adversity and going after the hard as opposed to the hard happening to me. And that is such a massive reframe for people in terms of, okay, let me just sit still for a second and stop trying to control the uncontrollable and put a filter in front of me as to what's legitimately within my control that I can manage. And let me start there. And in doing so, like to your point, the small wins start to generate exponential returns.
For sure.
And it doesn't seem so fucking daunting.
No, and I feel like it's such a constant battle of the what's in my control and what's not in my control, and like where am I putting energy that I shouldn't? And like, I mean, because you think about like prior to COVID, I had really divested myself of all things political because it was just always so toxic that I was like, I just can't waste any brain power on it. And I still mostly have that attitude. But
Mm-hmm.
also, if you have no clue what's going on, then all of a sudden your fucking gym gets shut down and you have no idea what's going on. Like, if you have no idea what's going on in the world, that's like, and so COVID, like for most of us, pulled me certainly like back into, oh my God, now I'm checking, the governor's update every week. And now I'm getting in fights with people online about stupid shit. And you get pulled back into it. And now I'm trying to like regain that balance because I don't know that I can ever pull as far out as I used to be, but like I'm back on social media more than I was probably before COVID, but less than I was at the peak of COVID. But I mean, it's a constant battle because there's no perfect formula for what is and is not, to be of your concern. There's probably some things that are never should, take up any room in your head. And then there's probably some things that always should, but there's a big boundary that's always shifting between those two things.
I think there's a huge difference between, current events and what's going on in the world and the fucking Kardashians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It definitely serves you to be in the know, but being aware and being involved are not the same thing. And I think that's what you're alluding to is like, I definitely need to know what's up, but I don't need to get involved.
For sure.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so grateful for you taking the time today. Where can the Progress Always Next Level audience find and support the houseboat trainer and all things on target?
Oh man, what's such a bummer is I sold the fucking houseboats. I'm not even living on it anymore. I'm living a lie.
You got to keep it. You got to keep it though. You earned it.
I feel like I earned it.
You said you don't have that.
For 4 years.
You said you don't have the ice plunge. You had the river.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, people can follow me, at the houseboat trainer. That's my personal Instagram, and then On Target Fit is the gym's Instagram. OnTargetFit.com is the website. We're brick and mortar. We're in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, so probably the gym directly doesn't have much for you. But we post blogs regularly, and I like actually write them and actually think about them. Like they're not like some chat GPT, generated bullshit. So I think they're good. I'll let that be up to the reader to decide. But so all that stuff is there, and my contact information is on all that. If I can be of any assistance to anybody, shoot me a message, and I'm always happy to help. And thank you so much, dude, for having me. Like I love podcasts generally, and I obviously love your podcast because you're in it, and because of what you discuss, and again, being able to like learn from you, even remotely, and emulate you even remotely is still great. So thank you so much for having me, man.
Dude, much appreciated. Much appreciated. For everybody out there listening, watching, take a look at all of our partners and sponsors for some pretty cool deals and whatnot. Remember, keep your promises, do hard things, and make yourself proud. And last and definitely not least, progress always.